Hello, my name is Christy Duncan, and my presentation today is concerning business intelligence in practice at Denver Public Schools. I'd like to begin my presentation with a brief history of Colorado Department of Education's progress towards business intelligence. Then I will outline a brief overview of Denver Public Schools. I'd like to go over Corporate Information Factory and the technologies, vendors, and tools in place today in the Corporate Information Factory. For a brief history, in 1997, CDE started to realize that they needed to unify their systems and also make them more user-friendly for all stakeholders involved, teachers, administrators, parents, and so on. In 2001, they created their first data warehouse. In 2002, they implemented the statewide student identification system. In 2005, they developed CEDAR, which is the Colorado Education Data Analysis Reporting System. And from 2007 to 2013, they've used these systems and modified them to cultivate the program that they enjoy today. Denver Public Schools is the second largest school district in the state of Colorado, with more than 13,000 teachers and employees serving almost 80,000 students in more than 160 schools. DPS Enterprise Systems support 295 applications across 220 physical and 450 virtual servers at a 12% annual growth rate. DPS currently has 650 terabytes of central storage at an annual growth rate of 21%. Their business intelligence orchestrates the development of the district's data metrics for On Track to Graduate, ABC Stoplight Report, as well as 200 plus other reports, including but not limited to school operations, human resource data, finance, assessments, facility work orders, budgets, and data reporting. This is their Corporate Information Factory. In the following slides, we will go more in depth in this graphic. We have the databases to start, and these are developing at the beginning to allow the data sources to come into the system. So we have Oracle Enterprise Management, which creates, develops, and manages the databases, as well as the functions and components of the 99DS, the 99AS, and the RDBMS. Then we have our data sources that I mentioned. Each one has its own repository. You see SAS here, Lawson, which is an enterprise resource planning company. In practice, they reduce costs for HR by streamlining that process. And talent acquisition, they also manage the acquisition, onboarding, and retention of student teaching or teaching staff. And then you have the enterprise principal, which is a dashboard that allows the principal to see at a glance enterprise-wide data. And then ProComp, which is a company for their compensation management that was until recently managed by Lawson. You also have DemandSmart and EfficiencySmart. DemandSmart provides a dashboard of sorts that shows the energy usage across the district, all 24 facilities, and by doing so, they are able to reduce energy usage in peak times in certain facilities based on those data metrics. EfficiencySmart uses analytics and also diagnostics to determine energy-saving opportunities and act upon those. BI technologies in place, of course, extract, transform, and load, ETL. They have 4 in place in the CIF because they have so much data they're trying to integrate. It's very key to have that many systems, ETL processes. So the warehouse builder creates the graphical interface ETL tools and the workflow schedules and monitors the ETL mapping and load routine that you see here. They also have the staging area and operational data store developed by Oracle Designer, which creates models including the staging area and the operational data store. Data warehouses and data marts. The data warehouse integrates data sources on a nightly basis from 27 enterprise applications into one centralized, normalized data repository containing more than 450 tables and views designed to provide reporting and analysis district-wide in addition to feeding the data into the BI tools. Data marts, you can see here several data marts that they've listed, and each one of these has a separate subject. So you have attendance, special education, parents, parent information, testing and assessment, and then separate departments and so on. So for the connections that are generated in the system to connect the data marts and the end users through BI tools, you have, and the web, you have Oracle portal, which creates the access portals and various portlets, Oracle Enterprise Management, which creates the public connections, and then Discoverer and Discoverer Plus, which develop the BI interfaces on the web. End-user application reports, because of all the things that we've discussed so far, these reports are possible. You have the teacher-student data link, where they've taken the student data and the teacher data and combined it to assess best practices for teachers and to try to continually improve teaching performance. You also have the P20 data link here. This combines this teacher-student data link with several state systems, including Department of Health, corrections, employment, and so on. And they do this to provide actionable data for students from pre-K all the way to career age. You also have SchoolView, which is a dashboard that shows student-focused information so that teachers and administrators can extract that and analyze that at a later time. EdFacts, which combine teacher and student information to determine future policy development, planning, and management. Colorado Growth Model is a statistical model that demonstrates how a student will perform on a future placement. So they take their current descriptive analytics and then apply a predictive analytic component to that to kind of predict what the assessment will be in the future. And then we have On Track to Graduate. This monitors attendance, declines in GPA, disciplinary actions, and tries to determine from an early stage, which students will graduate, which students will drop out, and try to determine those risk factors and those students that are at risk so that they can pinpoint their resources directly at those students. ABC Stoplight Report, which takes scores from a 9th grade report and tries to predict what they'll make on the 12th grade report, the CSAP. So of all the things that we've discussed here, challenges, I think one would be cost, for sure. To stay above, to stay ahead in this field, it is very costly for hardware and software and analysts and so on. And being in a public education forum with just the federal funds, typically, this is always going to be a factor, but I do think that they have thought about that and they're working on trying to stay relevant. One way they do that is that instead of replacing full systems, they're able to augment their system with smaller updates or smaller updates on software and hardware without replacing everything. So they do have a lag, but they do, in that way, they're able to limit their fiscal expenditures in that 1 year and kind of spread that out. Also, with cloud technologies, storage for everyone is reduced, so that definitely is a help for public education. And if that's the future of how this will be performed or executed, then that holds some optimistic outcomes. Centralization or integration. So they talk a lot about centralizing systems to be able to get this data, to be able to make sense of everything. So they're integrating a lot of systems within the school, within the district, within the state, and then also the state systems. So you have a lot of data coming from a lot of different data sources, from a lot of different people with different objectives and organizations. And so that's a problem on a lot of levels. On the one for integration specifically, I would say would be the data degradation. Data sources are going to be very different. They're going to have much different schemes for how they write the data. So that'll be a constant cause for concern, and I think that they are aware of that to a degree at least because of the several ETL systems in place and their CIF or their corporate information factory. Also buy-in, which goes along with integration. With working with different organizations, it's a little bit harder, I think, or even more difficult to collaborate together and to really make the most of these systems and their capabilities. So right now, the way that they combat that is they create committees across several systems and with different focuses and objectives. And they're trying to bridge the gaps between the systems, the actual people, so the organizations, so that the systems, the software and such can work together as well. They need some buy-in and from the end users. So another thing that they've done is in the past they were criticized for having very tech-heavy systems and programs. And so now they've worked to include more end users, business users in the process. So inviting them into the entire process from the beginning when they roll out an update. So I think that they are aware of these challenges and working towards them, although I don't think that they're going anywhere. They'll continue to work with these challenges. Benefits, one would be efficiency. With each of the systems in place, whether it be Lawson's management systems or the student-teacher data link, we're trying to focus on what's being used and how can we change that to make sure that everything's is the most efficient as possible. So it's a huge benefit for them because they save on resources for students and they save on energy usage with Demand Smart and Efficiency Smart. And then, of course, like I mentioned with Lawson, they save on HR and compensation, things like that. So for accuracy, accuracy is a huge benefit because if they weren't able to say with accuracy and with any certainty where they are and where they are going, they probably wouldn't make much progress. So it's a huge benefit. It's a huge boon to their progress, and if they can maintain that accuracy, they can continue to improve. Actionable data, more so than normal, I feel like this is a really huge benefit because instead of just creating actionable data for administrators and educators, they also have dashboards for parents. So I think that's really helpful because at the very most individual level, you can see action taking place in BI affecting day-to-day functions for everyone involved. So it's really a huge benefit. So questions that I thought of, will these steps forward stand the test of time in an underfunded and traditional field like education? I think that it will be a challenge, but due to cloud technologies and hopefully the expansion of cloud technologies, education will have a chance to stay ahead, to stay with the pack. I think the biggest problem would be buy-in, and I think one way to avoid that or prevent that would be to go back to the college level when you're educating educators and administrators, and possibly include a few BI classes or analytic classes, just to make them aware of it, understand the benefits of it, and maybe a couple of the systems. Will our entire education system need to be restructured to facilitate to the full extent business intelligence capabilities? I think so. I think a little bit at least. Instead of having, because you think about it, you have the data, and then you have someone needs to analyze it, and then someone needs to gather the data, someone needs to analyze it, and someone needs to report it, and the findings from the data, from manipulating the data. And to ask a teacher to do all those steps is, I think, not really taking into account the reality of how it is in a classroom. So I think that it would be better to have possibly more assignments done online so that you can actually quickly assess that data, quickly take that data. So more assignments online or on the computer so that you can take the data quicker, and then the teacher would be able to do the educating, the computer would take the data, and then they would have, say, maybe 5, 10 analysts on site, depending on the school size, to analyze the data and then make sense of what they're seeing. And this is my reference page. Well, if you have any questions at all, or if you'd like these references or like to read these articles, please let me know. Thank you for your time.